This episode is brought to you by Peak, the blockchain for real-world applications and home of DePIN. If you think it's time for Web3 to get real, check out their website at peak.network. That's peaq.network. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub over here, and today we're super happy to have Gabe from Hivemapper on our DePIN Hub podcast. Gabe is the head of operations at Hivemapper, and Hivemapper personally is one project that I really like and really enjoy. Been following for quite some time now. I would say that Hivemapper is one of the OG DePIN projects, alongside with Demo and of course after Helium. And it's been really interesting to see how they released the hardware last year and how far they have accomplished in the last year alone, right? But yeah, I guess, Gabe, thanks so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure. And yeah, let's get started. Like, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Daniel. Big fan of what you're doing with the DePIN Hub. I'm Gabe. I'm head of operations at Hivemapper. I've been with Hivemapper about a year now, since around the time of the network launch in November of 22. And at a small company like ours, 25 people or so, I wear many hats as head of operations. I build and support the contributor network, inform a lot of the reward strategy in particular, oversee our dashcam production and distribution, manage the scale up of our AI trainers program, where you can help to build the map, not just to collect imagery, but to build the map from what has been extracted from the dashcams. I manage also a lot of partnerships, fleets, distributors, and do business analytics internally to make sure that the project is on the right track. So a lot of different things. It's been an amazing ride over the past year. And before that, I'd spent about 4 or 5 years working at Lyft, building a new business line there. So very well understand these multiple-sided marketplaces and the importance of keeping supply and demand in balance. And before that, I spent some time as a journalist, actually, covering automotive technology, transportation technology. And through my whole career, I've been focused on transportation and excited about how we can help people get around in a more efficient, easier way. And that was what drew me to Hivemapper. It's an incredible vision for how we can build useful maps in a more cost-effective and fresher way to help people navigate our world. That's what I'm passionate about, and I'm excited to see how we've been able to execute over the past year.
Yeah, it's awesome, and congratulations on the everything that you built in the past as well. But for those people who don't really know Hivemapper, how can you describe it for like a 5-year-old?
Well, Hivemapper is a new and better way of building maps. Like, we all use maps to navigate our world. Some of the ways those maps are built don't really work that well. Some of the maps, like Google Maps, for instance, are really expensive to build because they're using these dedicated mapping vehicles with people driving around just to make maps. It's really expensive, and it takes a really long time for them to drive around the whole world. So often the map is kind of old by the time you're even looking at it. And on the other end, there are some open source projects who are having a lot of contributors, like individual people out in the world, helping to build a map together, but they don't do anything to reward those people. And so the only people who can help build those maps are people who have the time to commit to doing it. And so you end up with a great map where people have kind of more time, and you have a very poor map where people are working really hard and don't have that time. And that's not really fair to the work that goes into building a map. And so Hivemapper is a fairer way of building a fresher map. And that's what we're focused on building.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect project for the DePIN ecosystem as well, right? Like, how can you get to scale to get like really fresh maps? It's really funny because actually, I think it was yesterday, I was talking to my co-founder, like Max, and he was showing me where he went a couple of weeks ago skiing in Switzerland. And then he's like, oh, I'm staying in this house. And then we opened Google Street View. And then he's like, oh, actually, this place is completely different. There's like a 2-level house now. There's like building here. And then we went to check the data. It was from 2013. Wow, it's been like 10 years, over 10 years that they recorded that video. So many things change. So I think the idea of Hivemapper for that to be able to scale quickly and have fresher maps, it's super interesting. Do you know the story behind?
We had somebody who reached out to us recently, and they were saying, I'm driving on this road. I think it was in the Middle East, and there was no Street View there. So Google had never been there. And that road didn't even exist on OpenStreetMap. Like, the road just wasn't on the map. They were going off the map. And I think that's the power of Hivemapper. When roads are built and become relevant, our community will see them, and we will have the ability to add them to the map more quickly than anyone else in the world.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. Do you know about the story of Hivemapper? How did it start? What was the idea in the beginning and how it is now?
Yeah. So our co-founder and CEO Ariel has 20 years of experience in the mapping industry, and back in the early 2000s, he was working at Yahoo Maps. I think a lot of us remember, the I say the bad old days when we had to print out maps and probably had them in a folder in the car. Some people are young enough that they grew up with a smartphone and with Google and Apple Maps, and I have to tell you, you are very lucky. It was a mess back in the day. But anyways, Ariel was working there in the early 2000s, and just as Google Maps was coming up, and Google was pouring resources into building their Google Street View program. He tried to get Yahoo to invest more to keep up. They didn't want to do it. It was just so expensive. And so, Yahoo fell behind. And this kind of stuck with him. And he was thinking for a very long time as he went through, multiple kind of startups that he created and other jobs he held. He was thinking about how can we do what they're doing, but do it in a more efficient, fresher way. And he tried a few different startup concepts for building crowdsourced maps. And then he had this kind of spark of intuition as he was seeing the emergence of Helium a few years ago with the kind of token incentivized model for building, a network. And he said, that's it. Like, that's the way that we're going to build a map in a fresher and more cost-effective way. Instead of having dedicated vehicles with dedicated drivers driving around, which is like inefficient and expensive, and I mean, you're wasting gas and all that. There are billions of cars, more than 1 billion cars on the roads worldwide. We're driving, tens of billions of miles every day as humanity. Why don't we just use that to build a map? And, all of the hardware has come so far. Cameras are less expensive. Compute is less expensive. The bandwidth to, transfer that to the cloud is less expensive. Like, everything is cheap now compared to where it was when Google Street View got started. And I don't think they would have taken the approach that they did if it was where it is today. And so, we just see a better way, and that's what we've been focused on.
Yeah, I would say it's perfect timing, right? Like all the stars aligned, and then the perfect project can come out of that. Can you explain a little bit of how Hivemapper work a little bit more on the technical side? Like, you buy a camera, you have to install in your car. What is the process of using it?
Yeah. So Hivemapper has dash cams that are purpose built for mapping, right? Other projects have tried to that come before us have tried to do this with smartphones, but you have different cameras in every smartphone. The GPS quality is not very good, and so we went back to the drawing board and said, if you want to build a map that's really high quality and reliable, you have to control the hardware. And so we designed dash cams that would do that with really high quality imagers, and this is what we're hearing from customers. The image quality is really good. Some of the best GPS that you can get, much better than a smartphone. Again, we're hearing that from customers. It's exactly what they need. So you install this dash cam in your vehicle, and you pair it with the Hivemapper app. Just so that it knows, okay, here's the wallet of the person who is mapping, and then you just drive. You drive as you would normally drive, and it's collecting imagery the whole way. In fact, you don't even need to be connected to the app the whole time. The dashcam can collect 8 or 10 hours of imagery all on its own. Eventually, you do connect it to the app, you offload all that imagery from the dash cam, and you upload it either over cellular or over Wi-Fi, depending on the nature of your cellular plan. You upload it to the servers where our map AI can extract intelligence from all those images. We can say there's a stop sign here, there's a traffic light there, and we have all of the raw imagery as well for any map data customer out there who wants to buy imagery to feed into their own pipelines. I think this is an underappreciated thing. Some folks think, oh, it's good enough to just do the extraction, and we'll get some map features out of it. That's not what a lot of the customers actually want. Some of them want that, but a lot of them want the imagery so that they can process it themselves. And so ultimately, we're uploading huge amounts of both imagery and map features in order to allow people to build better maps.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that takes me to the second question, right? So this is more like in the supply side. How are you guys dealing with the demand side? Who are the demand side that would be interested in that data?
Yeah, well, I mean, mapping is an industry worth like high tens to hundreds of billions of dollars a year. It's a huge industry. And so there are very large incumbents in this space. We are all used to using Google Maps or Apple Maps in our daily lives, and it's free because we're the product, right? In the case of Google, right, they're using data to serve us search results and all that. But that's not the case for businesses, for governments. Google Maps has APIs that bring in tens of billions of dollars a year from hundreds of thousands to low millions of customers. Even if you never opened Google Maps, when you open Airbnb or Yelp or Uber and just on and on and on, they're all powered by Google Maps APIs. And so we're focused on the B2B market. We're not, at least not for now, we're not focused on building a consumer mapping product. We're focused on selling map data to business, government customers so that they can build better maps or integrate the data that we provide into their own services. And those APIs have gotten very, very expensive. They have a near monopoly in that market, and they've capitalized on that. And so we see a real opening here for people who want fresher data and who want lower cost data.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a little note on that end. When we were building Hotspotty and we started getting the first wave of Helium growth back in 2021, our biggest cost in terms of infrastructure wasn't servers. We're running, I think it was 4 Helium ETLs at the time, processing a lot of data. Even with all that processing power, our biggest cost was still the mapping, and it was just Mapbox. We were not even using Google Maps because it's still much more expensive. And you guys are providing way more information that we need. All we needed is actually show the world map, and that you can see more or less where the hotspots are located. So it's a pretty big market, and there are not that many players, right? So you guys, I think, in a pretty good spot for that.
Yeah, I think Mapbox is a good example. They're a company we admire a lot, we respect a lot. They've built some really great products, and I think you can think about the Hivemapper network as actually being kind of similar to the relationship between OpenStreetMap and Mapbox, right? Mapbox's products are all built on OpenStreetMap, so that's kind of crowdsourced data built by a crowdsourced map built by people around the world. And then Mapbox is a kind of a private company that's really good at building on top of that and selling you things. And I think our vision is a little bit like the Hivemapper network is OpenStreetMap. We are all collaborating to build this map. We're all being rewarded for building this map. And then on top of it, it's an open ecosystem where developers can come in. I mean, I think if we're really successful, maybe even a developer like Mapbox would want to come in and build on top of the Hivemapper network. Our project team at Hivemapper Inc., the developer who's building, kind of like the relationship between Helium Foundation, Nova Labs. We're a developer too. We're building with the raw data, but we would love to see many more developers coming in and building on top of that platform, just like Mapbox does with OpenStreetMap. And as you mentioned, they can charge quite a lot for these really valuable products that are built upon the raw data. And we want to bring more competition into that space to make maps more accessible and lower cost for builders like you.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm super excited to see that. I also see new products coming from that. And on that angle, you can also touch about the rewards of the people. Say what's in there for me I have a car, I want to put a Hivemapper dash cam in my car. How does the Honey token is called, right? Hivemapper, and then you have the tokens is called Honey. How does the incentive mechanism work for that?
Yeah. So there's a pool of honey that's allocated toward contributors that mints every week. And rather than it being a fixed amount that mints every week and it's kind of the same for everyone, there's a lot of dynamic factors that are going in there to make sure that great work is rewarded with great rewards, right? So the more progress that our entire community makes, the more of the world's roads that are getting mapped every week, the higher our map progress is and the more that gets minted. And then that pool of rewards gets distributed among all of the individual regions of the world based on their own individual progress. So, today there are some places in South Korea, for instance, or Taiwan that are growing far faster than some other regions of the world. And so they end up getting a larger slice of the pie, so to speak. Right. So that there's kind of a global pot that gets calculated, then the region pots kind of trickle down from there. And then at the individual level, not all contributions are the same. If you just drive the same commute back and forth to your office every single day, well, you're going to have great coverage on that one road, but the rest of your town is totally unmapped. And so there are factors that go into the individual level rewards, like freshness of, how much did the map actually need this coverage? Has this not been mapped ever? Has it been not been mapped in a month? And it's really important for folks to understand. It's not like a, first person to map a tile or, to map a hex gets rewarded and after that it's done, it's over. No, like we're building a map that has to be kept refreshed forever, like every week forever, right? And so the way that freshness works, it resets every 7 days linearly. So if it's never been mapped, you get max rewards. If it hasn't been mapped in a week, you get mapped rewards. And then it scales down from there. So if everybody's just driving the same road over and over, yeah, you're just not going to get that much for that because it just wasn't that useful to the map. And I think it's really important to us, this element of dynamic rewards. I think we see some projects designed with a much more fixed rewards mechanism where it's like the same amount every week. And there's kind of like a baseline reward that everyone gets regardless of how much value they added to the network. And ultimately, we think that doesn't align the incentives correctly so that contributors are on the same side of building this really useful product. And so that's why we've moved in a more dynamic direction with our rewards.
One of the good ways for people to earn the tokens is just basically, ideally you just want people to put in the car and drive as they do, not, like you said, not get out of the ways to map other places because you're going to be using more gas and then pollution, etc. Right? But I think if more and more people have those devices in their cars, automatically you're going to be building the whole map without actually an extra effort, let's say. Is there any advice that you can give to people in order to make more honey tokens?
Yeah. So I think our most important advice is drive as you would normally drive. Try to just make this a passive part of your life, right? Because the whole vision of the network is we want to take advantage of the driving that we are all already doing. If everybody drove passively, all the roads in the world would get mapped and we'd have a great fresh map and no one would have had to burn extra gas, put in extra effort, right? I think at this early stage, there's a lot of roads that have never been mapped before. And so if you're trying to, improve your freshness and get the biggest reward, go a block out of your way and drive a different road that you didn't drive last time. Don't waste a bunch of time. Don't drive all over the place just to map, but switch up your routes, mix it up a little bit, hit different roads that you haven't hit before, and that will result in improved freshness. So I know when I'm going places, I'm always looking at the map and saying, all right, I usually go this way. Why don't I go one block over and drive this other road? And maybe it takes me an extra 30 seconds, but I'm hitting something I've never hit before. So I think that's one thing that we definitely encourage, different routes.
And definitely not only for the honey or for Hivemapper, it's driving some different ways that not too far from where you want to go. You get to know new places, right? You get to find different things. And this reminds me when I was a student in Italy, Milan, I used to go back walking from the university. Every day I tried to go a different route and I find so many different restaurants or different supermarkets. And that's something that's really exciting, right? Besides making some money, you get to know the city a little bit better, get to find out things that you didn't know. So that's really interesting.
That's 100% right. Yeah, I've learned so much about my neighborhood. I've discovered new places I didn't know existed. And it's the joy of exploration.
PIC is a layer 1 blockchain designed to power DePINs. Why do DePINs choose to build on PIC? It's fast, scalable, low cost, offer builders are ready to deploy DePIN SDK, and is multi-chain. So when you build on PIC, you're building for all Web3. PIC is home for the fastest growing DePIN projects, with more than 100,000 vehicles and devices deployed, over a dozen DePINs already building, and the world-leading device manufacturers such as Boss partner with them. Think of building a DePIN? PIC has a grant program for DePIN builders. If you're listening to this, remember, you're early. The PIC network will launch in the first half of 2024. Check out PIC's channels for more details and links in the podcast description. One other thing that I was looking on the Hivemapper ecosystem is something that you guys released a few months ago called Bursts, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I think it's super interesting.
So map data customers often have very localized interests. They just to use an example, maybe a real estate company would want to keep an eye on one specific property, or maybe a construction company would want to keep an eye on one specific construction site. And so they have a strong interest in seeing it mapped very well. And something like Google Street View, the images are going to be years old, it will never be usable. We've built this product called Burst, which is basically like a bounty system where a customer can say, I really want map data here, and I'm willing to put my honey on the line so that gets mapped, right? And then it puts an icon on the map. Everybody can see that there's kind of a bounty out on this location, and they can go and chase it down like dots in Pac-Man is the analogy that some people have used. And some people find this really fun. It's kind of like a Pokemon Go experience where it's like, if I go over here, I can get this special reward. And you can also know that you're doing something useful because a customer has asked for this data specifically, right? And so it's a really cool feature, and it's one that we're still in the earlier stages of testing it out. out and figuring out exactly how to deploy it. But it's something that I expect to grow a lot in the future. And actually, there's another product that we've recently introduced that we have working and are starting to put together. We are putting together the SDK for others to build on top of it. That's called Scout. And the combination of Scout and those Honeyburst bounties is when things get really powerful. Because with Scout, you can say, okay, these are the locations that I want to watch. Tell me when you get new map data for these locations. And then you put a burst bounty on it, and you can watch as the images come in. And they get priority processing, and you can see the fresh images of the locations you care about coming in, sometimes within minutes to hours. It's incredible. It's something that no one else can do in the world today. And I'm excited to see all the ways that we've never even conceived of that people will use that product.
I mean, yes, I think whenever you build a good product, you can never imagine all the ways people are going to use it, right? It's interesting to see, and you can actually learn a lot with your users afterwards. So on the burst side, if I'm a customer, I want to have map data from a specific location. Do I need to buy Honey tokens and then I deploy them, or what is the process? Like people paying fiat, or what is that flow?
So typically today, you have to go through a developer. So for instance, Hivemapper Inc., who would place the bounties on your behalf. They would place the bursts on your behalf. And they'd be responsible for sourcing the honey, burning the honey to generate the map credits to place those bursts. And so it would be kind of like fiat in, then honey gets burned on your behalf, and that honey then gets reminted to contributors for the extra honey burst rewards. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think also after the SDK, there will be a lot of automation and new things that come up with that. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, self-serve burst creation and all that.
Yeah, exactly. I know there's so much to build, and there's this is very complex project, right? Very complete. So it takes time, but I mean, you guys have been killing it so far. Talking about doing a very good job. I remember Ariel was posting, I think you guys are already at 6 million kilometers mapped, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was 5 million in 8 months or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. And that's 6 million in the first year. That's about 10% of the world's roads. So we've made amazing progress. We're growing very quickly, but we've got 90% left to go. So it's still very early days. We've got a lot to do, and we have to stay focused on our mission and just continuing to build and execute and move as quickly as we can possibly move. Because there's big incumbents in this space, right? this isn't a thing that doesn't exist today. We have to build a better product, and we have to do it as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, I like to say, we're still early, right? There's still a lot to be built. But come on, yes. 10% of the world in a year is ridiculous.
Yeah, we're proud.
Yeah, I mean, you should be. Your mom should be very proud.
I think ultimately, we're proud, but I think the community should be really proud, right? Because what has made this possible is the dedication of our community. It hasn't always been easy. It's a brand new network. Not everything works as well as we'd like it to work right out of the box. Maybe the hardware is not as reliable as we'd like. Maybe the app has more bugs than we'd like. And people have stuck with it and are generating hundreds and hundreds of kilometers per week of coverage, right? Orders of magnitude more than we have seen in the past and are seeing today from smartphone-based projects. The dedication and the productivity is crazy. And honestly, I think every contributor who has put their time and energy into the project, they're the MVPs, not us. And it's just a matter of making sure that we're serving that community as well as we can, while staying focused on the needs of the map, the needs of map customers, and keeping everything in balance.
Yeah, especially building and mapping during the bear market, right? I'd say the last 2 years have been pretty tough. But I think for us and for you guys as well, it's the best time to actually heads down and build and create and make sure that things work. Because when the market picks up again, things got a bit crazy, right?
Yeah. It's there's that saying the bear is the good time to build, and that's definitely true. It's a hard time to recruit contributors. It's an easier time to build because you don't have to deal with quite as many of the challenges of hypergrowth, which is a completely different set of challenges on its own. It would have been much harder for us to stay heads down focused on improving our hardware, improving our firmware, improving our app, building map data products for customers, if we were growing our contributor base like 50% every week, and it's just wild having to scale that. So yeah, it's been a good time to build, and we are excited to kind of see the green shoots of hopefully a bull market come back. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. On talking about bear market and bull markets, can you talk about the Honey tokenomics? How does it work? The models, allocation structures, demand side, more or less. Do you have any intake on that?
Yeah. So Honey has a burn mint equilibrium with a max supply of 10 billion. And as I mentioned earlier, 4 billion of that is allocated to contributors with a weekly mint, right? And so as it mints week over week, there's a minimum of 10 years. It will probably be a little bit longer than that. Ultimately, it'll work its way up to 10 billion total supply, and it will stay there. And the reason it will stay there is because of the burn mint equilibrium, where whenever a map customer comes along and buys map data, they need map credits, which can only be created by burning Honey. And then that Honey gets reminted to the contributors who made the map possible. So 100% of the Honey burned for map data consumption goes back to the people who built the map. And ultimately, the thing that, the way that this network becomes more valuable, it only comes from finding customers who find our products valuable. Like, we are laser focused on building useful map products and not the other stuff, right? Like, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can design a token, inflationary, deflationary, and ultimately we think this is the one that aligns the incentives the best. If contributors do great work, build a really useful map, they get great rewards. We want them to be the people who power the building of the map and the ones who receive the rewards, as customers find it valuable and consume map data.
I think building good quality products and bringing good pictures and bringing good mapping, then actually that transfers to actually the value of the network, right? One thing that I installed Hivemapper on my car. It's taking pictures everywhere I go, right? I wonder if there's a lot of people who think, okay, is there any privacy concerns on that end? Because I don't know, I could be taking pictures of something illegal, or I'm the Area 51 in the US taking pictures of something that I shouldn't be. I don't know. How do you guys deal with this privacy security for user contribution data?
Yeah. So we take privacy really, really seriously, and the entire network has been designed around this. We don't know who's mapping, and we don't want to know. We generate a random username, and we don't have any personally identifiable information to correlate with that username. And we are doing things like all of the imagery is getting privacy blurred for faces, for license plates. And on the points that you raised, we have a couple different tools at our disposal. There's what's called personal privacy zones, which is I don't want to map my garage. I don't want to map my workplace. I don't want to map my friend's house, whatever. You can place as many of those on your own personal device and your own personal app as you want. And when you have those personal privacy zones in place, imagery will never be uploaded to the network. And those live on the edge, on your device, on your dash cam. We don't know where those personal privacy zones are. We just don't get data in those locations as a network, right? There's also network privacy zones. So, if there are places like Area 51 where there's kind of an enhanced societal expectation of privacy, the network, can transparently restrict those areas. And you can go on the map and you can see some of them today for U.S. military bases, which were the ones that the foundation decided to create as the kind of initial test of this functionality. The places that are considered on and off limits, kind of by society, will evolve over time. There will be new military bases built. There will be new industrial research facilities built, and so the network is flexible to be able to create new network privacy zones and prevent those places from being mapped in ways that aren't appropriate.
Nice, yeah. Hivemapper is a small team comparing to Google, right? I mean, of course, you have a massive fleet of people taking pictures. I think that's the magic of DePIN.
Yeah.
But on the product side, how do you guys compete? What is the biggest challenges of competing with a company like Google Maps?
Well, I mean, look, Google has dozens of mapping APIs that are providing different products on top of just the map that you see on the app on top of Google Street View. Okay, so it is a long road ahead of us to compete with them on a level playing field, right? But where we stand today with the way that our network is able to collect street level imagery, we think we're very competitive with them from in terms of their Google Street View API. That's kind of our first strongest foray into customer segments, because their imagery is not that fresh in most cases, and because it's very expensive, right? We can offer much fresher data at a much lower cost because of the way that we collect it compared to them. Ultimately, having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on vehicles, having to pay drivers to drive around in those vehicles, that's their Achilles heel. It makes their collection for Google Street View very expensive, and we can do it cheaper and better and fresher. So that's where we're focused today. That's where we're seeing great uptake from customers. The ability to get street level imagery far fresher and far more cost effectively than they can get from other options that exist in the market today. We're already hearing that from large name brand customers who you recognize, and it's still very early. We don't have the logo rights to put them on our website and everything, but we're excited to be able to share more about the name brand customers who are finding utility in this network as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think in the beginning there was nothing. There was like no really 3D pictures of the world. Then Google Maps came with the first try, and now actually you have information from everywhere, but a lot of the information is old. So then I believe first nothing, then Google, and now Hivemapper, right? Then that's actually when the fun starts, having very up-to-date pictures everywhere. Can you take your Hivemapper outside of roads? Let's say I want to take it on a hike to a beach or something like that. That could be interesting as well.
So currently we are requiring that mapping be done using four-wheel vehicles, like road-going vehicles, all right? And I think there are places where a four-wheel vehicle may go that is not a road, like a parking lot. That's fine, but we're not supporting any kind of off-road, non-four-wheel vehicle use cases at this time, just because we are focused on kind of navigation maps as a use case. Who knows what the future holds, right? There are so many ways of collecting a map. In fact, a previous project done by members of the Hivemapper team was focused on drone collection, right? And it didn't work as well as they'd hoped, but that is a cool idea. Maybe we would have a model where people could use bikes or body mounted cameras. We know Google has done that as well. Who knows what the future holds? I think first and foremost, we're focused on the largest and most valuable segment, which is road navigation. So sorry to disappoint the hikers who want to bring a GoPro and contribute to the Hivemapper network. Maybe someday, but just not where our focus is today.
Exactly. I think maybe not now, but maybe someday in the future. Because then once you guys are done with the basic sets of data you're trying to build, then you can actually go ahead and build some of the cool stuff. Because I personally love to go to beach or nature scenes and see the 360 angles of those places, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've taken a wrong turn on a hike where I wouldn't have done it if we had, Google Hike View. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah. Do you have any success stories to share from Hivemapper users?
You mean map data customers?
Yeah, could be both sides, right? Could be the supply side, could be the demand side.
Well, I can kind of share some of both. So I think on the contributor side, on the supply side, what we found is that people who are professional drivers, whether it's a gig driver or maybe I know we have one very active contributor who has a locksmith company, so he's always going through residential areas from house to house. They're an amazing fit for Hivemapper because they're driving as a job, so they can passively collect more imagery than anybody else. And they're not just taking the same highways, the same main roads. They're getting off into the side roads, into the neighborhoods. If you're a DoorDash driver, who knows where your delivery is going to take you. And if you're a plumber or an electrician or a locksmith, who knows where your next customer is going to be. And so those folks have found a great fit as far as being able to generate a ton of useful map data and therefore a ton of rewards as well. On the demand side, I think the place where we're seeing the greatest fit is people who have an existing data set, whether it's a map or a database that's used for logistics purposes, and they already have a database. They have a baseline understanding of what the map or what their data set looks like, but they want fresher information in order to update it, to keep it up to date. That is an incredible fit for our network because they're saying, okay, at this stage, you might only have 50% or 75% of the coverage of the region that I care about, but it's all very fresh. It's fresher than what I have. I'll take all of it. And that's really been the area where we've seen great success at this point.
For example, going back to the locksmith person, I believe that DePIN is an amazing opportunity to get real people, normal people into crypto as well, right?
Yeah.
Like this guy's earning like a passive income that can, I don't know how much he makes, but I'm sure that can help at the end of the month or end of the year, can make a difference as well. And then he likes this project. He's going to talk about Hivemapper to all his friends and family. So I think this is one of the most beautiful things about DePIN, is that onboarding like the normal Joe and getting to more millions of people into crypto. I think that's one thing that
at this point we're definitely seeing like a lot of Web3 DePIN veterans, enthusiasts, people who have done Helium in the past, for instance. They're probably the original members who came in as the first contributors. But then they tell their friends, if maybe that person who has a Helium hotspot at their house, they do some gig driving on the side. They have friends who are gig drivers. They tell their friends who are gig drivers. They start a fleet to get their gig driver friends going. You start to see people coming in who are, in many cases, interacting with crypto for the first time. They know about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's about all they know, right? And so they're creating a wallet for the first time, and they're understanding the power of crypto to interface with the real world for the first time. And that's really exciting. I mean, there's one guy who was saying, "Oh, I got my dad on board. He's mapping for Hivemapper. He didn't know a thing about crypto." It's like if we can get people who have trouble setting a DVR or a VCR to onboard to crypto, then crypto is going in the right direction.
No, exactly. I think that's the right thing to do, right? We wanted to get people involved in crypto without them even realizing it's crypto, because that at the end of the day, we want to build products that create value, not just like a bunch of degens that are gonna pump and dump some tokens, right?
So absolutely. We for us, like, this is a really important point for us, that like for us, we're using crypto because crypto is a powerful technology that allows us to align the incentives of the community around the work of building a map. Like, we're more of a mapping company that's using crypto as a tool, just like we use, cloud services, right? Just like we use machine learning models. We're not religious about crypto. Like, crypto is a tool that solves a problem for us, and it's working very well as a tool that serves a problem for us. But I think it's really important that we as a community focus on people outside of that that religion, right? Because only so many people adhere to that religion, and if you want to become big and relevant in the real broader world, you have to connect with people who aren't religious, and who are seeing real utility from participating in your project. And I think there's not enough out there that's doing that, and we're doing our best to be one that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of our goals at DePIN Hub, right? Our goal is to bring DePIN and bring crypto to the masses. Like, I like to say that DePIN is the gateway drug to Web3, because this is how we're going to onboard a lot of people without they even realizing it's crypto, without the fear of like, oh, Bitcoin is a scam or Ethereum is a scam. So I think, like you said, the crypto mechanism to get where we want to go, it's the perfect match. Let's get a little bit nerdy. I think that's why my favorite topics, right? Getting to the nitty gritty of the engineering and the electronics. When I come to San Francisco last year, I got one hardware, and then me and my co-founder, we drove from SF to LA. We've been mapping all over the place, and then we brought to Portugal. We've been mapping around here as well. Can you talk a little bit about the building of the camera? Because like you said, you've been in charge of that part as well, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned this a little earlier. Based on the experience of our team in previous mapping projects and some of the learnings that we had taken away from other projects out there that had done crowdsourced mapping, we felt it was critical to control the hardware that's collecting for the network. I think a lot of people come to us and say, well, why not just map with a smartphone, right? Like, there are other projects out there that do this. There's other projects in the past who have tried to do this. And we've never seen it really work. Every smartphone has different hardware, a different camera, They have very inconsistent and inaccurate GPS location. And in addition to that, the friction of having to map with a smartphone is real. Like only so many people are going to get a side phone that they're using just for mapping. Okay. Like most people want to use their main phone. And that means that every time you start a drive, you have to pull that phone out of your pocket. You have to correctly mount it on the windshield. Now it's all the way up there on the windshield. You can't really see it very well if you want to use it for navigation. It's a mess. And like we had tried to build this network with smartphones previously during an earlier kind of beta version of the Hivemapper network. People didn't stick with it. They quit. The productivity was terrible. Like we had to go and build our own dash cam. And like building a dash cam has been hard. It's been really hard to scale up production and to make this dash cam very reliable. Like we wouldn't have done it if we didn't know that we needed to do it. And we're proud of what we've built. We've built a really solid, reliable, highly productive mapping machine that's generating like hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of useful data per contributor per week with higher quality than what a smartphone can do. And we've continually improved that. We went from our original Hivemapper dashcam model to the Hivemapper dashcam S, which is our most advanced model. We're in the early phases of planning out a next generation model as well. Like more details to come on that probably in Q1. And we're going to keep pushing the envelope of what a great mapping machine looks like. Not just like get a little bit of map data here with a device you already have, but like a dedicated mapping machine that can cost effectively deliver really high quality data that our customers are willing to buy. I think that's the hard question to ask any DePIN project. Okay, like what is your product and who is really going to buy it? Right? If there's not already, a Web 2 company who's making billions of dollars a year selling the product that you're building, like ask yourself why not? Like, why do you think that crypto changes that? I think that's a really hard question that a lot of projects need to ask themselves. Like, I don't want to have a situation in DePIN where like there are projects out there that don't have a solid strategy and it, kind of harms the reputation of the others.
One thing that I would like to touch as well is I met actually Ariel in Lisbon last year for Solana Breakpoint. Mm-hmm. And what was the process of choosing to work with Solana? There's like the Polygon, there's Ethereum, there's so many other different blockchains that you guys could build on. Why Solana?
Yeah. So, that decision was a bit before my time, but I'll tell you what Ariel, our co-founder and CEO has told me and what he said publicly on this. So, he was having conversations with different folks, and I think it was the relationship with Anatoly that really got him over the hump. They were like, look, we're focused on low cost, high throughput. And if it doesn't work out for you, like we'll help you get off, right? Like, we're not trying to get you stuck here, And he just felt a really great relationship with them as far as their vision of an incredibly scalable, cost-effective blockchain and their support for him as a builder in, being willing to help him try it out and, no problem, no regrets if it doesn't work out for you. And we've found that it has worked very, very, very well. I think we've done a total of 12 million transactions since the launch of the Hivemapper network. And I couldn't tell you what it costs. Like I'm the head of operations. I couldn't tell you what it costs because it's so low that it's a rounding error in our cost stack. Like that's incredible. That's what blockchain should be. We can issue our weekly transactions in a matter of minutes. Whereas who knows how long that might take on some other L1s. And the tech stack is so easy to build on. Like Ariel mentioned this on another podcast recently. People don't realize that we have one engineer building our entire Solana stack. Like to us, that's a good thing. We're a mapping company. We're not like a Solana company. Okay. Like we don't want to have 10 engineers who have to work on this thing because it's so hard to build on. Like it's incredibly efficient for us as a builder. And ultimately that's what it should be. Like this is a platform for other people to build on. It's not a job in and of itself, really. It's not this, it's not a goal in and of itself. And so it's been a great fit for us. We're very happy with it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think what you guys are building, I think Solana also is a great ecosystem for DePIN. There's so many cool projects building on top of that as well. Different blockchains offer different things. Of course, I'm a big fan of Solana as well myself. I like what they're trying to build and how they're supporting the projects. Do you have any alpha that you can tell the people on the podcast of things that are coming up?
I mentioned a second ago that we have plans in the works for a next generation dash cam. And we're looking forward to sharing more details on that in Q1. I can't share like any specifics on it, but what I can tell you is that, we've heard loud and clear from folks the importance of making the dash cam even more passive than it is today. And so we're thinking about the best way to achieve that, while continuing to improve the quality for our map data customers in ways that a smartphone cannot match. So that's one thing that's a big priority for us. I think another one, this isn't, it isn't alpha in terms of it not being out there, but the Hivemapper Foundation recently proposed a proposal called MIP 7, which is around updating the rewards formula starting Jan 1. And it's going, and if it's finalized as written, it's going to result in significantly like boosted rewards in some of the regions of the world that are making the highest progress, to help push them closer and closer and closer to a full 100% coverage map. And so, if you're in one of the places where, it looks like, oh, there's getting to be a lot of coverage here, there's a lot of contributors here, the foundation's proposal would, up to 3x the rewards in those regions that are making the greatest progress. So that's a really important change to the rewards that would take effect for 2024. I think those are a couple things that are coming down the pike. There's always a lot more coming at Hivemapper. We move really quickly, and excited for people to see what we do next year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was going to ask, like, how do you see Hivemapper growing next year, next 5 years? But I think there's so much that's going to happen, and it's going to be really interesting to just put the dash cam in the car and just like go drive and figure out what you guys are building. It's been super interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think our evolution is just continuing to do what we're doing and continuing to execute. It's amazing that we've done 10% of the world's roads, but that's only 10%. We have a long way to go. We need a lot of dedicated contributors in order to get there. And it's great that we've had some early success on the demand side with customers who are seeing really strong value in what we're building. But there's a lot more of them out there, a lot of people we've never spoken to. And so, I think we're going to be incredibly focused on the demand side of this marketplace. And, with 100% of burn being reminted to contributors as additional rewards, I think people are going to start to see the benefit of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's amazing. Thanks so much for your time. Is there anything that would you like to close on?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun to talk through it, and we'd love to come back anytime.
I'm gonna drop a discount code on this video or in the audio, depending where you're listening or watching the video. So be aware of that, and let's go get some new cameras and get start mapping, because I think that's what we like to do anyway. Thanks so much for your time. It was a pleasure, and have a great day and have a good one, man.